Interesting.
Hello guys and girls, how are you doing? You alright? Today we will be travelling to a god-forsaken place that I'm sure that none of us ever wish to visit. Tik Tok, the home of well-adjusted young people, cats being rabbits, and Jon Romano. Jon would set up his TikTok account named Jon Seeking Peace and start to post random things like motivational speeches, his views on the world, how mental health issues need to be talked about more, and the things going on in his personal life.
You know you've got to keep her when she finds out you're sick, comes over, and makes you soup from scratch. I'm a lucky guy.
There was also another theme on Jon's TikTok account, but we'll come on to that later. For now, Jon's account wasn't getting much attention. Videos about your girlfriend making you soup were never destined for notoriety. When not posting on TikTok, Jon would work at a homeless shelter helping the people in need, and it was this job that would make Jon's TikTok account blow up in popularity and lead to a tragic event that would change his life forever.
So just a warning, this video is going to be a little hard, but so I've been in the hospital for the past 10 days or so. I was attacked by somebody with a machete, and I don't have the use of my arms, my hands, my legs, or my feet. It's going to be a while, but I do have a lot of great surgeons helping me, putting me back together. And I've been receiving a lot of love. A lot of people have reached out to me. A lot of people have sent their prayers, their positive thoughts. And I just wanted to let everybody know how much it means to me. And we're still gonna push forward. We're still gonna do good and talk about reforms and changing things for the better. So I just wanted to let you all know that. Thank you.
Jon would post a video showing him in hospital after being attacked while he was working at the homeless shelter. This TikTok would get over 1.5 million views and propel him into the TikTok limelight. Jon would start to post more videos from hospital detailing what happened to him and how his recovery was going. He had unwittingly stumbled across what the TikTok algorithm was hungry for, and Jon would feed it until it was stuffed, then force feed it some more, posting video after video on the attack and watching his follower numbers grow to once unthinkable heights. The videos about his attack would get 4, 5, 8, 10, even as high as 14 million views. And Jon would post videos about every little detail of his injuries and recovery. He would still continue posting the same motivational speeches as before, but it was this sword attack that people were really interested in and the main reason that many thousands of people were now following his account. The details of the attack are actually pretty interesting and horrific, so let's take a look at them. On the 29th of August 2022, Jon would go to work at the homeless shelter as normal and help oversee the lunches being given out. Things were going well until a black homeless man named Randall Mason asked what was for lunch, to which one of Jon's co-workers told him that it was written on the board. Randall then called him a white devil, which the internet tells me is a racial slur used by black supremacists in America. Jon then informed Randall that he can't use that kind of language, so Randall sat down to eat his lunch and started to talk to himself. Randall then started to call Jon a white devil, and a disagreement broke out between the two of them. After a while, Jon would demand that the man leave the shelter, so Randall walked off to collect his belongings from his locker. When Randall returned, he was now carrying 2 swords and ran at Jon, screaming "White Devil." So Jon ran for his life but was knocked onto his back while trying to flee up some stairs. Jon then started to kick at Randall while he was laying on the stairs, with Randall hacking at his legs. Jon would start to black out among the screams of his co-workers and injuries to his legs, only to come around again with Randall standing over him. So Jon put up his arms to protect himself as Randall started to attack again, and in Jon's words, his arms started to fall apart. Jon was now a bloody mess with his hands and feet hanging on by a thread. Randall then left the building and was arrested while walking along the street with a sword.
Yeah, during the sword attack, I did my best to protect my head, but sometimes the swords bounced off of my arms and caught me right there. Right there. Thankfully, the surgeons did a fantastic job with that one. There's another one up in here. But listen, man, protect your head at all costs.
The sword attack left me with 34 scars throughout my body, and I don't even know how many sutures, staples, and stitches there was. Nobody in the hospital bothered counting.
Randall Mason would later plead guilty to the attack and get 25 years in prison. One of Jon's co-workers at the homeless shelter is quoted to say that Romano worked in a relatively thankless position to ensure that a demographic who has been largely abandoned by the rest of society has the resources that they need. As Jon's inspiring story drew more attention to his motivational channel, it grew more successful. But as is the case with the internet, attention is a double-edged sword, and soon he had many detractors. Some trolled him by saying that the attack was no big deal and that he should get over it. Others claimed that he was just playing the victim for clicks, and some claimed that he was a manipulative psychopath. So why would people be saying such things about this poor man and his motivational channel? Well, dear viewer, there is a very important detail that I have neglected to tell you. On Jon's TikTok account, there are also many videos about his time in prison and videos about the crime that he committed. Jon is very open about this on his channel, so let's look at some of the things that he has said about his crime. Jon was a very troubled child, suffering from depression, seeing therapists and being given medication. Unfortunately, this didn't really work for him, so when he was 16 years old, he walked into his school with a shotgun with the intent of ending himself. Jon didn't have the courage to do this himself, so he plans to force the police to do this for him. He also had a burning resentment for the world and wanted the world to see him, as he puts it. Jon has stated many times on his channel that he never intended to hurt anyone, and this was all about him wanting the police to end him. Jon would sit in the bathroom of his school contemplating what he would do next when a young man walked in. The pair looked at each other and Jon allowed him to run away. He then walked into the hallway and saw two more students, so fired 2 rounds in the ceiling to scare them away, to which they ran for their lives. Jon then walked around for a while and found himself in a classroom. He states that he went in there just to see people as he didn't want to be alone. After seeing the fear and terror in their eyes, he left the classroom and was tackled by the vice principal, who grabbed him from behind and a struggle ensued. During the struggle, the gun accidentally went off, shooting a teacher in the leg that was coming to help. Jon says that he didn't even know that he had shot someone until later on. He was then arrested, taken to court where he pled guilty and was given 20 years, of which he served 17 in prison. While in prison, he would write a letter to Albany Times-Union newspaper expressing his regret and asking others not to follow in his footsteps. When Jon was released, he started to work with the police to help them avoid these kind of situations in the future. He gave talks at schools. He is very anti-gun, making videos about how they should be restricted, and started to work at the homeless shelter in order to give back to the community. Jon states many times that he now wants to be part of the solution and not the problem. Just so we are getting the timeline straight, he got out of prison in December 2020 and the sword attack happened in August 2022. Jon is very clear in all of the videos and interviews that I have watched of him that he never wanted to hurt anyone but himself, using birdshot in the shotgun, aiming above the heads of the people, and not even being aware of what he had done to the teacher until later on. He also claims that he was tricked by the police into signing a statement without reading it. He gets very emotional when talking about his crime, expressing regret and remorse for what he has done.
And I was popping extra Xanax that night and that morning because I was trying to stop myself. And I could have gone other ways to stop myself from committing this shooting. I could have opened up. I could have told my mother. I could have done so much to stop myself, but I didn't.
And if you believe I deserve this, so be it. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I don't want people to forgive me, to think that I'm a good guy. I don't care about any of that. What I want is for change. What I want is for people to realize that if we take mental health more seriously, that is just one step of many that can make drastic changes around the board. Not only stopping these tragedies that we see too often, but also stopping the suicide that we see among adolescents and children, let alone full-grown adults, let alone our veterans who don't get taken care of. So here I am, the bad guy. the one who walked into a school with a gun, telling you, you need to change things.
So this is Jon's version of events. We will come back to this crime a little later on, as it is very well documented, and there may be a little more to this than Jon is letting on. Jon has many detractors online who attack him in many different ways. There seems to be a lot of American black people who have taken a disliking to Jon because of the sword attack. Jon has made a few videos about the attack, questioning why Randall Mason hasn't been charged with a hate crime and claiming that the attack was a racist one. These videos have sparked a lot of ill will towards Jon from some black people. A lady named N. Growth claims that Jon provoked Randall into attacking him and that Jon's TikTok account is a white supremacy in a box. There are quite a few of these types of videos by many different people, but the main theme that runs through them all seems to be that Jon shouldn't have been working in the homeless shelter, the attack wasn't racist, and an unspoken acceptance that Jon deserved it in some way.
A person who is able to walk into a school with a gun and fire off shots, right? Now he's working at a homeless shelter where he has the power to remove impoverished black people from the only place that they currently have to live. I mean, it sounds a little bit white devilish to me. I'm gonna just say that. It sounds a little bit white and it sounds a little bit devilish to me, if I'm being honest with you.
Elijah Atkins, seen here in his profile pictures with his kids, says, if white people just leave black people alone, this wouldn't happen. Always bothering somebody, then call us crazy when we react. And he's talking about the fact that I worked at a homeless shelter and almost got dismembered and murdered by one of the guests with a sword. But how was I bothering him, Elijah? Please answer me that. How was I bothering him? I was one of the guys that went out of my way to help people. Free food, free clothes. We were definitely doing all we could to help people. How was I bothering him? And why didn't he go after the black co-workers of mine who were asking him to stop using racist language? And is this the type of thing that you're raising your children? Because if so, you need to do better.
We do have body cam footage from when Randall Mason was arrested, and he seems pretty open about the fact that the attack was racially motivated.
The dude said I was saying something racist, so I showed him what racism is.
Jon has had a lot of pushback on TikTok from others as well for a variety of reasons. One user called Thump Truck claims to have become friends with Jon on TikTok after the sword attack, but was unaware of the stuff that he did when he was younger. Since she has found out this information, she now thinks that Jon is very manipulative, leaving out key details about the shooting in order to make himself look better, and that he uses the sword attack to play the victim and get sympathy from people. The fact that Jon talks about the sword attack a lot seems to be a common complaint from people as well. Like when his father died, he posted a video about how his father's death was on the anniversary of the sword attack. Some of the more meaningful criticisms of Jon come from parents who have lost their children in crimes similar to the one that Jon had committed. They say that Jon shouldn't be allowed on TikTok. Jon would eventually turn off comments on his videos due to the amount of negative feedback he was getting. So we have heard Jon's side of the story. Now let's look at what the official sources say happened in Columbia High School in East Greenbush, New York. The following information is taken from court records and William B. Patrick, who was commissioned by New York State Education Department to write a book-length report on the incident, which is free to read on his website. I have read it, so you don't have to, but feel free to visit his website and check it out if you want to. Also, some of the information about his early life is taken from an interview he did with a YouTube channel called Ian Bick. Jon was born on the 30th of October 1987 in East Greenbush, New York. His parents divorced when he was 5 years old, and from the outside his life seemed fairly normal. Jon claims that he was abused by a family member from the age of 5 to 7, but does not say who this was. As a child, he loved to play sports and things seemed to be going well in Jon's life, but this all changed when he hit 14 and he started to feel depressed. At the age of 15, he would go into therapy and be given medication, but sadly this didn't help and Jon's grades began to slip. Jon was then put into a private psychiatric hospital called Four Winds for 1 week. He then spent the rest of the school year being tutored at home. When he returned to school, he would continue to misbehave, so he'd keep getting his medications switched until finally one seemed to work, and Jon started to do well again. From the outside, things were starting to look good in Jon's life, and he asked his mother if she could buy a shotgun so that he could go hunting. His mother checked with the psychologist that he was seeing, who said that this was fine as Jon was doing well, so she got one. On the morning of February the 9th, 2004, Jon would wake up at 8 AM and write a note. In this note, he would say how much he loved his mother but disliked his father, who used to beat him. Jon would go down the list of his siblings, half-siblings, aunties and uncles, remembering good times with them and wishing them well for the future. He wrote, "I want you to know that I'm not an evil person. I don't want you to look back and think that I was. In a few years, I hope you'll start to understand. To all other family, I'm sorry." In this note, he would then go on to talk about the people in school that he disliked. Jon would then make his way to school with his shotgun in the case, as it looked like a musical instrument, so would avoid suspicion. He would then sit in the school bathroom for 15 minutes contemplating his next move, in which time he would text his friends with the message, "I'm in school with a shotgun. Get out." A young man would then walk into the bathroom, so Jon raised his gun and pointed it at him, but the young man ran for his life and escaped into a classroom where he barricaded the door. Jon would walk out of the bathroom where he saw 2 more young men, so he raised his gun to waist height, pointed it at them and fired. The boys dropped to the floor with the pellets hitting the wall behind them. They heard Jon chambering another round, so they got up and ran, with Jon shooting again, hitting the wall just by one of the kids' legs, and the wadding from the round hitting one of the kids in the leg. Jon would then walk around the school into a classroom where he saw a teacher who would let out a guttural scream, to which Jon just walked out of the classroom and continued to roam the hallways. The assistant principal would run up behind him and grab Jon and the gun, and a struggle ensued. Jon was a big 16-year-old, so the assistant principal was finding it hard to overpower him and called for help from another teacher who came to his aid. Jon saw that the other teacher was coming to help, so he jacked up the gun and pulled the trigger, hitting the teacher in the leg. The recoil from the shot then knocked the gun out of Jon's hands, and now the assistant principal had it. But Jon was right on top of him, trying to get the gun back, throwing the assistant principal into a wall. The assistant principal then started to talk to Jon, saying, "Come on, Jon. Give it up, it's over with." This seems to have done the trick, and Jon just stopped. The pair standing awkwardly in the hallway, not knowing what to do next, until the assistant principal tripped Jon over and put his knee onto his back. Jon was then arrested when the police showed up. He had taken 25 shotgun shells with him, and the court records show that later that night Jon was seen laughing at the television news of the incident. As normal, I've tried to just present the information to you guys so you can make your own mind up about what you think of all this. I'd be interested to see what you guys think about this one, as honestly I'm a little unsure what I think. This seems like a very American story. All the stuff to do with race, medicating children and the danger at schools. So I'm pretty aware that what I think as an Englishman would probably be different if I were American. We don't really have to worry about our children facing this kind of stuff at school. And I'm sure that if I did have to worry about that kind of stuff, I would feel a lot harsher towards Jon. But we can only live the life that we live, so I feel more sympathetic towards Jon than most of the people on the internet. I was a very different person when I was 16, and I know probably more than most that people can and do change over the years. A lot of people say that Jon is manipulative, plays the victim and lies about his crimes in order to make it less serious, which I think there is some truth to. Clearly the details he gives and what the book says are pretty different. Taking it all into account, I think that Jon was going to the school to hurt other people, but was more selective than other people that do this kind of stuff. The fact that he walked into a classroom, saw people in the classroom, then walked out again, or that he just gave up when he was asked, proved that he wasn't just targeting people indiscriminately, but also the book and the court records show that he was aiming at people, and that it is only his incompetence that saved it from being a worse incident. Another thing that I noticed is just a little detail really, but Jon has claimed a few times that part of the reason that he did this was because his head was messed up from being abused by a family member, but in his note when he was listing all of his family members, he made no mention of this. If this really was a driving force for you to commit such a crime, you would think that you would bring it up in your goodbye note. Also, a lot of the videos where he is crying and talking about the crime seem fake to me. It's hard to know for sure, it's just a feeling that I get. If we move away from the things that he has said and look at the things that he has done since leaving prison, the actions that he has taken all pretty much seem like the actions of someone who is trying to do the right thing and make amends in some small way. Working at a homeless shelter, giving talks at schools and helping the police. It's hard to know what more he could be doing really. Jon has also said that he uses the money from TikTok to buy stuff for people at the homeless shelter. It's a weird one really, and as I say, I don't really know what to think about it all. Jon is still active on TikTok, so let's wish him and everyone else involved in the story the best with their lives.
What does forgiveness mean to you? And what benefits do you get from not forgiving somebody? Because a lot of people know me for two things. The first thing is the sword attack, in which I forgave my attacker. And the other thing people know me for is the shooting I committed when I was 16 years old. And it's a hot topic about, do I deserve forgiveness? Now, I'm not seeking forgiveness. That's not my platform. My platform is about preventing future tragedy. But I will say that forgiveness is a very powerful thing. Like I said, I know that from firsthand experience, because forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not saying that what happened was okay or that somebody shouldn't be held accountable. Forgiveness is saying, I'm not going to hold on to that consistent anger and that desire for revenge or to see the other person fail. Forgiveness is letting that go.
Watch this video about Minnie Manson. It is a very unusual tale. Thanks to the channel members and Patreons whose names are showing right now. Look at them, they're lovely. Do the like and subscribe thing. I'll be going into the comments of the Joker of Nottingham video and seeing who won the vote. Then that will be my next video. Thanks for watching and bye bye.
I may be straight, but I don't hate. Happy Pride Month, y'all.